along playing Mario Galaxy.
Awesome. No, I
watch you on my lunch break, and now I can't watch you.
you might appreciate this. Whenever I get ready, I always introduce myself as a gamer, a cosplayer, marine biologist, gamer, and a cosplayer. Those are like 3/4 of my personality. Your borderline looks fantastic.
Thank you. I made this in like 3 days.
It looks amazing.
It's DC Digital Media too.
Yeah, digital media too. Yeah.
Oh, we're live.
My hair is doing so much anime stuff. Should I wear my headband or my format?
Oh, whatever you want. I don't know. I like the Zelda because you're Zelda.
Yeah. Well, you know that I always have that headband.
And they said Ash.
No. Oh, is chat on right now?
We're live.
Oh. Let me go in there. Hello. We're in there. Hi. Okay. Oh, that's cool. They could see us. Wow. Oh my god.
We're all in chat.
I also feel like you and I have met somehow, even at least indirectly, because this just feels too natural.
It's totally possible.
I love that.
It's possible.
That's awesome. Sound like
Also, like I went to like conventions for so long. I'm like, I've met so many people. Huh? Well, it was your Comic Con, but now it's Dragon Con. But yeah, I used to go.
I lived in Atlanta.
I used to go all over the East Coast. MagFest is still my favorite convention.
My favorite is honestly concept animation. MagFest animation is.
I've still never been to animation.
It's wonderful.
I have so many friends that go, and I've still never gone. Yeah, that's nice. You need the good vibe.
No, you build each other up. You use that to inspire yourself.
We go no, I don't know anyone that's just one client. Hello, we're crazy. She's like 30. Yeah.
They used to. I unfortunately brought them up this weekend. It works. It's just slower.
Okay, there we go. Oh,
Is there?
Not
hello. Oh, you could hear me.
So these mics seem really hot. Was anyone able to hear anything we were muttering beforehand?
hot mic.
Don't listen.
I'm actually that serious.
Yeah, you can hear us regardless.
Good, but were y'all able to hear much?
All right, you're good now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We're making sure it's a good level. So can y'all hear us just fine? Are the mic levels good?
Yes, I love it. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy to present, this panel about how to stream retro games. It's a huge passion of mine and everybody that's sitting here with me today. My name is Ash Said Hi, and I'm going to let my amazing panelists introduce themselves. Please go ahead.
You're far too kind, my friend. Hi, everyone. I am Mansell Ferox. I am a marine biologist. I am a gamer and a cosplayer, and thrilled to be on this panel here. I also happen to be a moderator for the amazing Ash.
Hey.
I am XO Peachy. I am a variety streamer, but currently very deep into my retro era, and also a cosplayer, as you have eyeballs and can see. Nope.
Not as many,
They're
not
from
as
Borderlands.
many zombies.
But yeah.
Awesome. And you do cosplay as well? You were telling us earlier.
Yeah, I've been cosplaying since 2009.
Wow.
Went on a very long hiatus, and I'm back.
Awesome. Well, I love streaming retro games wherever I can, whether that's Twitch, TikTok, wherever. I've been broadcasting since March of 2019, and I'm also a Twitch partner, Twitch ambassador, and my main focus of my content, whether that's on Twitch or Twitter or wherever on social media, is really revolves around retro gaming and connecting with people through the joy of retro and nostalgia and all those kinds of fun things. So we want to teach you, if you're ever interested in doing something similar, how to do that, because it can be
Not as
complicated.
straightforward.
It's not very straightforward all the time. So we're gonna go over how, first of all, defining what retro is, right? Because that means a lot of things. To a
We
lot
were
of
just
people.
arguing about
We
that,
were
actually.
You
literally
say arguing. I say having a very animated
Discussing.
conversation.
discussing.
Yeah.
We all have very different
It's
opinions
because
about it.
as you'll discover, it's not an easy answer. It's the same as for both streaming as well as for streaming retro. Even though it's becoming more and more accessible, there's still a lot more to it than meets the eye.
exactly. Yeah. And people will argue the fact. So got to be prepared for that if you're going to do it. What type of retro content can I make? Because there's tons of things to do out there. And how do I broadcast retro games? Like, how do you act like I got $50? How do I start this? You know, like that kind of thing. Real hardware versus software and game choices to kind of get you started, because it's always nice to, you know, give people some ideas. So we're going to show you how to do that. So we heard you talking about it earlier today. What exactly is a retro game or console?
So yeah, there's definitely not a definition. I have this conversation with other retro streamers all the time. A lot of people throw out the 15 years, and that makes me sick to my stomach.
Same.
Because 15 years ago was 2009, and in 2009, Borderlands, the game I'm currently cosplaying from, came out, and I refuse to count that as a retro game. Xbox 360 cannot be a retro console. I can't. It makes me feel like I have to collect Social Security. It's not, no, I can't do it. So for me, it's like a nostalgia. It's very deeply rooted in nostalgia, but also this like element of lost media.
Yeah.
Because PC gaming was not prevalent in the 90s. It was there, but it wasn't prevalent the way it is now. And a lot of a lot of games just died off when that console went away. And so for me, it's like nostalgia is a very, very strong part of retro, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with the 15 years thing, because we were all actually discussing this beforehand. It's like, who decided that?
Yeah.
Like literally, who? It's the same as like who decides what's fashionable in a year. Who's they? Who is? So what?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
who was they?
That's who we should
was
trust.
they? No. Point. No, thank you for that though. But no, the thing with retro is that, again, as they were both describing, retro is a very broad definition. It's also, I feel, a very fluid and subjective definition, because of course the 15 years is fluid. It's literally fluid with each passing year. Same as with each generation. We were talking that a better mindset for a hard definition would be actual console generations, like how far back do you go, and what your definition of retro is might not be mine. I'll just go ahead and flat start with this. To me, retro is SNES and older. But if someone walked up to my face and said, "Hey, the Nintendo 64 is retro," or even so much as, "Hey, the Wii's retro,"
Oh, please.
I'm not ready for that either.
I'm not going to argue with them. I'd be like, "Okay, it can be considered that." And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is up
Yeah,
subjective.
Exactly. It's
Oh.
absolutely. So what do you say?
Dreamcast.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
My
Yeah.
favorite
I
console.
played Skies of Arcadia in the retro category.
And I
The best game. I'm currently
It's
playing
so
Skies of
good.
Arcadia
and
in the
I've got
retro
it for
category.
GameCube. So yeah.
yeah.
But it's like I realized that even when I was figuring out my own definition of retro, I was just kind of like, but wait, is this just because it's hard for me to recognize it because I grew up with these games? If I feel for some people it is, for me it's like, no, I'm not just clinging onto that. It's because of what it feels like and what that definition is.
Yeah.
But again, I'll just also mention this too. So since I said I also moderate for Ash, and we talk a lot of retro on her channel no matter what she's playing, and I put up a poll for the chat of what do they consider to be retro, and I put everything from basically 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th gen. So NES era, Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, Wii, just to keep it simple and short for time. People voted across all categories. The overwhelming majority, though, said the NES. So they were thinking 3rd gen and older is retro, which was really interesting. I remember Ash was like, wow.
Wow, yes, it's true. I mean, I like to go even further back. Like for me, I always talk about Amiga, DOS, you know, those kinds of, like Sierra, like that era.
Me, Atari 2600.
Yeah. So
I think
That-
I
and
think
that's
the age,
why-
Exactly.
Right, and that's
They-
why. Right.
It's age.
Right.
That-
Honestly,
It's
I have
rooted in nostalgia and
Yeah.
like where you grew up as a
Yes.
kid.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely play PlayStation 2 games in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just remember,
Yeah,
we
we'll,
do,
we'll
we,
take questions at the end.
we do
but
have limited
yes.
time, so thank you for the
Yeah.
enthusiasm, though.
But yeah, no, I have played PlayStation 2 games under the retro category. For me personally, I usually say whatever the generation is now, 2 consoles back. So I think the baby version of retro is the Wii.
That would be
and-
the 360 and PS3
and
though.
I
Why?
put Morrowind in the retro category, and that's
Morrowind's absolutely
right.
retro.
It's 21
I mean,
years
it
old
also
at this point.
feels retro though.
That's another point
It
we'll
is
get
my
to.
favorite of
Right,
the
so
series. But
that's-
it also feels.
I think that's a big factor too. Is like visually, whatever the games are now, is there a vastly different look from the graphics and like the capabilities of the console.
Capabilities
Yeah.
for sure. Because graphics we're now in the indie categories are going
Right.
back into that
The-
that
it's like there's-
8-bit style.
Right,
and
there's
stuff
like a retro
that. So it's-
renaissance going
Yeah,
on.
so it's definitely the capabilities is
Yeah.
a big
Absolutely.
Right.
ticket item.
Exactly.
That was actually a big thing that me and one of my friends, Koopa, and I were talking about beforehand, was even when it comes to the console itself, like what capability does it have?
Yes.
So like some of our more digital ones, like the Wii, especially with its old virtual console, could do more stuff. Whereas the SNES, love it, not
Yeah.
as much.
So with that, yes, that game you grew up with is retro now. Yeah. Yeah. It is.
I
Yeah.
grew up with the one on the left, but I'm very familiar with the fact that everyone will consider that a retro game.
Yeah. I mean, Super Mario Sunshine, when you look at it, like it already got a remaster on the Switch. So,
So, and speaking of the fun thing with that, not sure if many of you have picked up the newer Switch game, NES World, Nintendo World Champions
Championship,
NES Edition. Not only is it cool being able to play those clips and bits from older Nintendo games, it'll also tell you how you rank in your birth year or how old you were when it
yes,
came
which
out.
that's a really cool feature. that
really
they
is.
have.
Is it?
Yes,
That
I
sounds
love that.
painful and
It's
sad.
not.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to share this like as an example for one. I recently did one of the challenges for Balloon Fight and somehow got #1 worldwide.
Yes. Let's go.
Now the funny thing for that, thank you. Funny thing for that though is then it also tells me for my birth year, which also was #1, and it's telling me how old I was at the time of release. I didn't have a Nintendo then, but
Yeah,
yeah,
like, please don't tell me that.
Yeah.
it makes me happy though because like seeing just that whole generation thing. Because whether those games are older than me or not, it's great being able to see when they came out and that.
You know what? I think that's a really great segue into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is why should people make retro content? Like, why is this a great genre to get into? And I personally would say the main thing for me is just connecting with people. I love having conversations with people online, especially on Twitch, YouTube, wherever, where we can talk about a game that we grew up with and reminisce, or somebody missed out on something and now they get to vicariously live that experience through my first time playing it. Like the first time I played Final Fantasy VI, right? And everybody's like, first of all, how did you miss Final Fantasy VI? Ash, I thought you played video games. And I'm just like, listen, all right, I was playing other RPGs at the time, so
And also superior games on the Super Nintendo.
yeah, there's lots of reasons why you might have missed it.
It's a
but
great game though.
I want to hear from y'all. Why should people make retro content? What's your experience has been making retro content?
I feel that for like why making retro content is because it's a great way for you to either relive some of your favorite games. And we've all joked around there's stream accountability because like, oh, I should replay it. And this gives you a bigger reason to do so. So that I can also help with chipping away through the backlog because I have some games from back then that I have
Don't talk about
not
the
finished.
backlog.
Oh, I'm never going to finish one and I've accepted that.
Yeah.
There's too many games.
Yeah.
But basically, I love doing it for being able to either relive some of those older games, whether for finally completing them a new challenge, sharing them with other people, because some of my friends weren't alive when those games came out, or they just never got around to playing them. Like last year I broadcast The Little Mermaid from the NES, and people
Oh.
lost their mind over that.
That's such a good game.
It is. I grew up like beating the heck out of that thing, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know they made this." Because many people didn't have an NES or they hadn't played
Right.
it. So again, being able to share that, and of course, as Ash mentioned, people come in, "Hey, I know this game," or others you just get to show it. And as far you're saying about our experience with why people love it.
Yeah.
Why people love it because they feel again as we both mentioned,
nostalgia bomb.
you're able to connect, and it's just one of those things where, do I love new games? Do I collect them? Oh, absolutely. I've got the latest Famicom Detective Emio sitting on my doorstep at home.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh,
Yeah.
for real. And we're all excited for Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom coming out.
Yeah.
We're jumping into all those. But we can always come back to these to relive it, because sometimes you just get that urge to go back and play it again. And that hits me a lot.
Yeah.
So for me, it's why make it? Because it's fun. You get to relive it. You get to share it. You get to bond and connect. We all met thanks to retro.
Yeah.
And for what do we love about it? Again, not to get too repetitive, but it's that nostalgia bomb. It's that good connection. There's good memories. And that can also inspire you to check out other games, whether one of your viewers comes in and says, I should give this a shot. Or like, oh, I thought this game was too hard for me. I have a friend who thought she couldn't play platformers, so she didn't want to play Kirby. She loved the character Kirby, thought she couldn't play platformers.
Yeah.
I let her try a Kirby game. She's obsessed now.
Yeah.
So
That's how I felt about Mega Man.
You make it accessible.
I would say as a streamer and as a viewer, my feelings about retro are actually a little bit different.
Okay.
So as a streamer, I tried playing new to me games.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy them so much because fans come in and they really want you to love every aspect. And I'm like, sometimes I just don't like this game that is very popular that I don't like. And I'm like, so it's okay.
It's a real experience.
But it's right. So like I don't really like having that. I'm like, oh, I really don't like this game, and everyone in here is obsessed with
Would
it.
you like for me to share one with that to make you feel better?
No, because if I share mine, I'll get beat up after.
Oh, mine's not a retro one, is what I meant.
Oh no, that's fine.
That's
But-
good.
so I like sharing games from my childhood
Yeah.
because if I wasn't streaming, I'd be playing them anyway.
Yeah.
I'm currently playing through my favorite game of all time, which is Skies of Arcadia on the Sega Dreamcast. Every time someone comes in and they're like, "Oh, is this your first playthrough?" I'm like, "This is like my 95th playthrough." I'm 100%ing discoveries with no map. I'm like, "No, I know this game like I made it myself." So like, I love sharing that because it's like sharing a part of me. These are games that like structured me as a human being. I'm like, so I like sharing those things with people. But as a viewer watching retro games, I like watching games I've never seen before because I want to be like, oh, is this a game I want to play? So I did not have a lot of consoles growing up, but I had a lot of friends with those consoles. I never got to play Wind Waker, and I'm not hugely into 3D Zelda games.
Yeah.
But I watched a friend play Wind Waker, and I was like, calling my brother, like, hey, can I borrow your GameCube? Because I want to play Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Like, it looks so freaking good. And I'm like, I just want to try it out. So as a viewer, I like watching games that I missed as a kid. But as a streamer, I like sharing my favorites with other people. And I also have ADHD. I love to info dump, but I'm like, I know every bit of information about this game. Let me please vomit all of this information at you.
Yeah, I love that.
So like, I like sharing that stuff. When I like something, I like it a lot. I
Yeah,
talk about it a lot.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat. Like whenever I talk about why I play a lot of retro games, it's because I get to reminisce about memories I had with me and my dad playing like the Amiga 500. Or when we used to sit and play Joust on PlayStation, like the Midway Arcade Classic compilation, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I get to share a part of me that I don't get to talk about a lot. And I get to kind of talk about like how awesome my mom is because, you know, we used to play Super Nintendo games all the time together. And, you know, she still plays Elden Ring right now. And, you know, like people get to see a little side of me that's personal, but also, you know, about the things that I love, which is, you know, video games. And I love the aspect of recording these experiences so that they live somewhere in case these games don't exist somewhere anymore, which is a very scary reality, you know, with
becoming more prominent too.
Yeah, or like games just disappearing because like entire digital stores are taken down, and that's important to me as well, is preserving those experiences. So that's a big reason of why I would want to do it. So let's talk about what kind of retro content we could create in general, because there's lots of things out there. What have you all done like any specific kinds of retro content?
So this whole summer, Sega Dreamcast is my favorite console, which every time I say that, people are like, it barely existed. I'm like, exactly. And every game a hit.
You know, I just got a Dreamcast for the first time in my life.
I just bought my second Dreamcast new in box. I don't even want to talk about it. But because I never stopped talking about Sega Dreamcast in my community, I was like, guys, if we can fund for my upscaler,
Oh,
I will do a summer of Sega where I only play Sega games. I've been playing Sega games since the end of May. I am still actively playing Sega games right now.
Yeah.
It does not end until next month
I love
because
that.
I gotta finish this game before we can move on. So yeah, I have been deep in the Sega. I've only streamed Sega games for 3.5 months now,
Yeah.
and it has not been a challenge at all because I'm like, no, I love it here. I can stay here forever. It's fine.
I love that. I love that. What about you?
For me, for any types of retro streaming, I love to be able to, again, just relive games I didn't get to play as much, but for the most part, it's more of like, y'all don't know this game? Here, let me enlighten you. And so it's more like you're sharing it.
So it's a lot of first time
it-
playthroughs.
Several first time playthroughs. Honestly, most of my playthroughs, I didn't start with those. I started filtering those in because when I first started broadcasting, I was like, I need to be able to filter out both multitask for playing the game, but also reading chat. So I started with stuff that I was familiar. I did some replays.
Yeah.
For me, it's a replay, both for fun as well as first playthroughs. For that, or just a completion, because some of those games I played as a kid but just never beat.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, it's more of just a replay. When it comes to retro, newer stuff tends to be more of a first play. But as you, both with me, I also tend to, if it's a certain new game, I'm not broadcasting that yet because I want that
You
experience
don't
for
want the
myself.
spoilers and
Yeah.
all that
Well,
kind of
and
stuff.
I usually
Yeah.
wait before,
Yes.
like, I wait for a game to be out for at least a year
But also,
before I'll first play through.
Yeah.
But I know I've seen this with you a lot, and I get this too, where people come in like, "Oh, is this your first playthrough?" And I'm just, I can play this blindfolded.
Yeah.
And especially and not people don't do this a ton, thankfully, but as we all have seen it on Twitch, sometimes you get the person who tries to come in and backseat or tries to tell you something, and I'm always polite, but I will proceed to school them.
Wait, I have a question for the audience, real quick. How many of y'all stream or create some form of content online?
Nice.
Okay, so
Got a
like
good crew here.
more than half the room, most of the room.
That's awesome.
Okay, cool. You want to? Okay.
Hey, that
All
that
right.
one's the
It's a
biggest
great
thing.
place to be.
But yeah,
Okay.
for me, it's real. And also sometimes I'll do something I call retro roulette, like, or I want to get a stream in, but I don't know what to play. I love just hopping on the Nintendo Switch online or even my older library. I'll just like go through as I want. And I'll-
smart.
Thank you. And I also do that for like some of my charity incentives. Like, hey, y'all
Yeah.
want to see this old game?
Yeah.
I'm about to do like resume my original Paper Mario 64 playthrough from my old cartridge
Yeah.
because I never finished it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember where I was too.
Awesome. So I want to go through a few of the things that I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
on the slide here. So you talked already about first and casual playthroughs, which I think is like the majority
Yeah.
of what people do because they either see somebody playing it and they're like, "Oh, I want to play that myself," or
Mhm.
"I've never played this. It was in my backlog. Let's go through it." But a thing that people I don't think about a lot. I mean, obviously, well, speedrunning is thought
Mhm.
about a lot. Like a lot of. Have you ever done?
I am the
speedrun?
child of a Super Mario Brothers speedrunner. My dad used to sit. I was like, Dad, can I play? No, sit down over there. My dad used to speedrun Super Mario Brothers 1 with
Yeah.
his brother and our cousin.
Yeah.
And my sister and I would just sit on the couch and just watch. They would be on the floor in front of the TV, and we would be sitting on the couch, hands in the lap, like, I want to play the game. My parents fought over the NES more than my sister and I did. My mom also very big Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2 fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've watched speedrunners.
Yeah.
They give me anxiety,
Yeah.
especially any platforming speedrunners. My
Yeah.
heart's in my throat watching someone else play.
I have a lot of respect for speed running, and I've done some of those challenges myself, but I prefer to just take my time and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, in contrast, like my dad, my first console I played was his Atari 2600. My NES was my 5th birthday present.
Wow.
There's a lot of dedication taken to speedrunning
Mhm,
because
there is.
it's not a game you play once, it's a game you play 300 times.
Yes.
Yeah, you have
Because
to.
you have to memorize
Yeah.
the entire game beginning to end and
Yeah.
know where you can,
Yeah.
clip some time off
Yep.
of your run and clip some time off of your run and clip
Yeah.
some time off of your run, and you're playing this. ADHD does not allow me to play the game 300
But
times.
it is a good.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for speedrunners.
That's part of why I
It's a
really
lot of
appreciate
work.
like the Nintendo World Championship, the NES
Yeah.
edition, because you get that thrill of speedrunning without having to dedicate all the
A lot
time
of time
and
to
energy
it. That's a good
It
point.
introduces you to it. So if you just want to like dive into it a little bit,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was like again, it's not as much my jam, even though I've done some of it before, but I have so much respect for it. And that's it kind of goes into what I feel all three of us agree on. there's no one way to play video games.
Yeah.
As long as you are the one who's enjoying them. That's
Exactly.
what matters.
I see challenge runs listed too.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Another
that's
thing
fun.
I'll never do, but I will always be like the first in chat to be like, "You're crazy."
Well, yeah.
Why are
So
you
the,
doing this?
so the difference between a speed run and a challenge run, where a speed run, you're obviously trying to make a personal best time, you're trying to get the fastest time, or just hit the leaderboard. A challenge run is usually when you give yourself a particular task. Like I know a lot of people do like deathless runs, or they try to do
level runs.
no level runs, or one continue only.
Mhm.
So that's an option for you. And the reason why I like to list that is because if you're creating content, and let's say you play a game a lot, bless you, and you want to give yourself like a new challenge or a new like idea of how to play it, it's a great exciting thing for your audience to be like, oh, we're taking something that we know and we're doing it a little bit differently, or we're giving ourselves like a new like goal. And that's
Yeah.
exciting, especially when you make your goal. It's really exciting for the audience.
Yeah, and then even outside of the challenge run, sometimes there's just the fun things you can do for charity or things like that.
Yes.
Like occasionally for me, I'll flip the screen so it's left to right, or I'll play blindfolded. I will be
You flip your controller.
Yeah, I'll-
And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing
Yeah,
anymore.
for me, like one of my more popular clips is I'm completely blindfolded and I'm playing against opponents in Killer Instinct Gold blindfolded and beating them. That was before War Child.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was quite fun. I'm a Saberwolf fan and owned that for that. A friend of mine who's also a broadcaster, she beat one of the first, I think it was Dark Souls 3 bosses with a DDR dance pad.
Oh yeah,
That's
alternate
sick.
controllers.
Yes. Yes.
Alternate controllers. I've seen bongo
yes.
drum, no level Elden Ring. I'm like, who
Yes.
are you?
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to my good friend Thorman Gander.
That's exactly
who
who I was
does
talking
that
about.
challenge
Yeah.
runs with
Thorman
the
Gunder's amazing at that.
bongos. Yup,
Yeah, the
yup,
DK
yup.
bongo drums, no
Yeah.
level Elden Ring, and I'm like, sir, stop! Like you don't have to do this.
Yeah, no, for anyone who knows Killer Instinct Gold, I was Saberwolf and I was defeating Tusk, and I played it blindfolded. And like I knew enough for it, but I'm still waiting. And as soon as I hear his victory howl, you can actually see me go, "What?" And I just start laughing in that happiness.
That is amazing.
Like,
I
it
didn't
was
know
doing
that.
some of our charity stuff together. Is how I got some of those challenges.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, and then other things that I have listed here, retro achievements. So if y'all are not familiar with retro achievements, it's awesome. Okay, so like imagine you have all your retro games, you go to a website and they give you a list of tasks you can do and you get points, right? And there's a huge leaderboard and they're really fun and interactive, and it usually hooks up with RetroArch, so it automatically tracks your points through a profile. That is a great way to create content and put a new spin on things that you're very familiar with. And there are people who specifically are like, did you badging the game means you got all the points in the game. Like, did you badge the game? And it becomes like a like a fun camaraderie kind of thing.
Really, yeah.
So have you all ever done randomizers, fan translations, or overhauls or shufflers?
Mostly a couple fan translations, as well as some like fan games.
Gotcha.
Mostly a bunch of the good Zelda ones,
Yeah.
as well as one of my close friends. He's actually making a custom Fire Emblem ROM hack
Oh,
that all of our friend group are characters in.
yeah.
So
So tell us what a ROM hack is.
a ROM hack is basically where someone takes the base mold for a game and then creates their own game and story from it.
Yeah.
So there's a number of Legend of Zelda ones based off of the original Zelda. There's some past ones like Parallel Worlds, and there's even some Ocarina
I was
ones.
gonna say I've seen them.
I've
Yeah.
been excited about those because Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time, and
Yeah.
and basically I have some of those set to play, and I've not touched them yet because I'm excited to be able to play these with an Nintendo 64 controller and dive into these mechanics that I know, but a world I've never explored.
Yeah.
So it's
Does having those controllers make a huge difference in how it feels to play?
it does honestly.
Yeah.
I do, and
I think that's also a nostalgia. That's
Yeah,
like
I
the
think
muscle
so.
I
memory
agree.
comes
Yeah,
the
back.
muscle
that's
memory's
true.
absolutely there.
Very
For me,
true.
like, I mean, I know you've seen me do this in person. I can bounce between each controller because I'm so used to each of those buttons for there. But again, I'm very much a big fan of use whatever controller is best for you. If you like the modern one, if that's all you have.
Gotta
Or
say, you said
accessibility.
Ocarina is your favorite, but that controller is the worst thing that's
The
ever happened to
N64
me.
controller?
I
That's
bought-
a really weird way to say Jaguar.
I bought an alternate N64 controller, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't make me do,
Which one?
the Retro Fighters.
Oh, the Retro Fighters. I like
Yeah.
those ones.
And
No,
it doesn't make me do shadow puppet hands. when
I
I'm
never.
trying
Yeah,
to hold
I
the
was able to do mine like this,
N64.
which was completely fine. But I absolutely understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So funny story.
Interesting.
N64 is my third favorite console of all time. The controller threw me for a
Controller is
but I
crazy.
Yeah.
love it. I love it now. It's my third favorite controller.
Yeah, ROM hacks are interesting because they are like you already know these mechanics.
Yeah.
Here's a different game.
Yeah.
So
Like the
it's
Super Mario
spin on it.
Kaizos are like
The Kaizos, and then
very
when we were doing
popular.
that Mario
those
puzzle
speed
one,
runs of those
Yeah.
are mind blowing.
Yeah. If you've never seen a Kaizo run,
they're crazy.
yeah, definitely watch.
and if you're not sure
really
about
fun.
watching it, you just want to try it for yourself. Just go to
Also-
some of the crazy levels in Mario Maker.
Yeah.
Also, I see you have shufflers on there.
Yes, tell us
I'm
about shufflers.
experiencing my first shuffler
Oh,
for
nice.
my birthday.
Oh,
where
Happy
I'm gonna
birthday.
do only retro side scroll platform Super Mario games.
gotcha.
And I've only played 3 of them on there.
Wow.
So 3 of them are new to me, or 5 of them are new to me, and I've only played 3 of them.
Wow.
So shufflers are really, they sound fun, and then when you're playing them, I'm like, that's anxiety inducing. Basically, you're playing a game for 3 minutes, and then the game will make a little save spot and switch to another game with no notice.
Yep.
And then you play that game for maybe 5. It's a random
So it's
amount of
WarioWare.
time in between. Basically,
Sort of, but yeah.
so then you play maybe that game you played for 5 minutes, and if you're in the middle of a tough jump and you keep missing it, and you're finally like mid-air and it switches to another game, and you're like, did I make that jump? I
Yeah.
won't know until we get back to
I
that
need-
one.
Yeah.
I
So,
need to get back. into
Yeah,
Mario
so they switch at random. You pick the interval of how many minutes it is before it switches over.
Yeah.
But it varies, and then you can also have it shuffled where it's not in a sequence, so
Yeah.
it's random orders. You don't know what's coming next,
Yeah.
and every time it switches, I'm like, oh god, it's a different game, because you're like, where am I? Like
Yeah.
you're in the middle of shooting something, jumping somewhere, and like you have to remember where you were when there's 10 games in a category, and you're like,
Right.
which game is this again?
Right.
So our challenge is actually going to be to beat at least half of them.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
So
We did a shuffler, so I recently did Zeldathon, and for charity, every time someone donated a certain amount of money, it would switch from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's also a really, really, I'm glad that you brought up that point earlier about charity work, because we do a lot of charity work on
Mhm.
Twitch, and it's, it's a really fun thing to do with a good cause.
Mhm.
And a lot of these like functions work with charity, and they're really fun incentives. So I'm
They're-
glad that y'all brought that up.
The great thing with them too is that they can be targets, they can be incentives. Anything is like, for example, again, the blindfolded and flipping it just for a donation incentive. And one of my
Just little
targets,
things.
exactly.
Yeah.
I still needed to fulfill this as a target. Fully admit, I'm going to finally do a Zelda randomizer. I moved when that happened and haven't been able to sit down to get
Yeah,
it to
yeah,
work yet, but it's on
yeah.
the docket.
Yeah.
But no, there's so many options, and like even if it's a game you have completely played and mastered, there's other ways for you to enjoy it. You can always make your own challenge, even if you don't want to get into the tech of it.
And it's not limited to this. You can have
Precisely.
ideas beyond this.
Absolutely.
Do them. If you're doing something different than everyone else, that's great. That's the thing
Yeah.
you should be capitalizing
That's
on.
how
the
people
thing
come
you
to
should
the
be
show.
sharing.
10,000,000%.
Yeah, that's so. I got $50 in a dream. How do I start broadcasting retro games with my very limited budget? What do you think is like an absolute, I must have this in order to start?
There's no for must have just in order to start. Man, there's not
It
really.
depends.
It does, yeah.
If you don't have consoles, it's very hard to buy a console, a game, and then all of the pieces to stream it. That
Yeah.
right there, like on original hardware, $50 is getting you nowhere.
Nowhere. You think? Okay.
For $50 only to
Yeah.
cover all that, if you have nothing,
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard.
Gotcha.
But if you've got consoles, if you've got games, and you're like, listen, I have this console, I have this game, what do I do? These are definitely the things you need. Now, you would probably, if you are me, you have cables because you have that box with all of the cables that you collected for the 30 plus years you have lived. And you
You
just
leave me in my
have,
box of cables alone.
Yeah.
I
You
have-
have like 100
I
composite cables,
Listen,
component
I
cables.
moved across the country with my box of cables.
Hey, so did
I took them too.
Yeah.
So if you've got a console, if you've got the games, honestly, those can be the most expensive things. So if you've already got those, you're already ahead of the curve. If you want to do original hardware, I will say if you want to stream retro, you don't even need that powerful of a PC because your PC is not running the game. The console is. So you can stream off of like a janky laptop. And then OBS is the stream software. It's free.
It's free.
It's free. You do
Oh,
not have to ask, buddy.
You can
go.
absolutely go.
Yeah.
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 No, but no, I agree wholeheartedly on every single point
Yeah.
with that, and it really does depend. I mean, $50 in a dream, that's great, but also depends on where your starting point
Yeah.
is. For
That's
that. So,
true.
again, as Peachy was saying, if you've got nowhere, your best bet to save up and start like making baby steps and then plan things out while
Yeah.
that $50 hopefully grows into more than
Yeah,
that.
it also depends on like how you want to go about
Yes.
streaming, because
Right.
this is where we get to the digital
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
original hardware.
Right.
I was gonna say,
Original hardware, if you don't have it, as someone who started with and can't stop going on eBay, don't do it. It's dangerous,
We're
man.
gonna
It's
we're
dangerous.
definitely gonna get
Yeah.
to that
But yeah,
point
so
for
if
sure.
you don't have consoles, there are programs that you can download on your computer to run these retro games.
Mhm. It's okay to talk about emulators. It's the ROMs where
Yeah,
that becomes the
exactly.
sticky part.
So
So emulators are fine.
So yeah, I was gonna say for the $50, Hillary said I mentioned $50. Well, she mentions $50. My first thought for that is like, well, if you've got a Switch, that right there is your Nintendo
that's
Switch
true.
Online
Right,
plus your expansion
yeah.
pass.
Yeah.
So
you
even
just
though
need a capture card.
precisely, and it's like at that point, then you would save that $50 for that, and then start saving for the capture card.
Yeah.
Now, this Nintendo Switch Online, as with virtual console things, I have not always had to use those because I was fortunate enough to grow up with those games, and I have those games.
Right.
But guess what? I love having that. I know you play with it too. And do you also play on Nintendo Switch Online? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to assume.
See,
Yeah,
so
But
that's the great thing. Like that's a lower barrier to entry
Precisely.
version of it.
Yeah,
then
if you've got a Switch and you have the NSO,
Yeah. You're good.
you're
That's-
done.
that
All
right
you
there.
need is a capture card to bring it into a computer.
Precisely. And
That's it.
real quick points on Nintendo Switch Online. I know some people have varying opinions on it. I think it's great because, again, for me, I've played most of those games. I have a new way to play them now.
Convenient,
Yeah.
It's
too.
convenient. It's so
And
wonderful
The
for
cords,
broadcasting.
the cords are everywhere. It's so
It
convenient
takes,
to
it
have them
takes
on
like
the
for
spot.
some of those games that may have like a difficulty spike, like you can save your game like anytime, whereas
Exactly.
if you play on original hardware, you have to save where the
Some-
game.
Some games don't have save.
Some games don't have
Some
save.
games didn't have save. You just had to, one shot the whole game. And like, oh, you're not good enough. Real
Yeah.
quick.
Real quick, we have a stream question, I believe.
Oh, we do. Okay. Okay.
Well, we can actually see it right here.
I can read it. Yeah.
yeah.
it-
What hardware do you suggest upscale for streaming?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah. Did we want to go upscalers before we do capture cards?
Well, we're gonna get into that. Actually, we have a slide dedicated
I see that,
to
yeah.
that.
So I see that that's a friend of mine, Amanda. We'll get to that in just a moment, my friend.
Yeah. So okay, well, what I want to talk about on the screen here,
Yes.
which you have also brought like some of the hardware that you use, but what I also want to emphasize is like, let's say all you have is your computer, right? And you're like, I want to get into streaming retro games and I don't know where to start. There's a lot of great websites.
Yes.
Like AntStream Arcade is a service that you pay like $20 a year, and it has like Amiga DOS games, it has Super Nintendo games, NES games, arcade games, and all you got to do is use OBS, capture your window, and if you have a controller, you can even play just on your keyboard.
Oh yeah.
That's it. That's like super
It's
basic.
very nice entry level, and OBS. I'll just go ahead and flat say for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, it can be a little overwhelming at first. It can bully you a bit, but take your time.
There's tutorials everywhere
That
too.
too.
Yeah.
Play
Also,
around with it.
streamers are helpful.
Yeah.
We don't like. I've had very limited interactions with streamers who don't want to share all
Yeah.
the information they know.
Yeah.
Like we like to help people and make
We
sure
all
that
are
they can
constantly-
start their journey too. Like, what do you
Right.
need help with? I got you.
Yeah.
So OBS is the software that we need to capture our gameplay. Then you probably need a capture card. A capture card is basically like a hardware, or it could be a piece that you install into your computer, usually an HDMI in, and then you can hook up your console. And then what you need to be able to hook, if you decide to
retro.
do, if
No.
you decide to do hardware and upscaler, which is what you
I
got
actually
right
brought
here.
mine.
Yeah. And real quick, back on capture cards, there's no one size fits all. There
Yes.
are a lot of
Yeah.
them. There is a very popular brand that is not the only.
I would
brand.
actually
Yeah.
say so. The brand of upscaler I have specifically says do not use the most popular capture card
Mhm.
Yeah.
because it has a tendency of overheating.
Yeah, I
So
have-
which one is that?
This is the so RetroTink makes several of them. This is their lowest end one. It is the 2X Pro.
And the one pictured there's the 5X. That's actually the one.
Yeah.
So
They both
this
work very
is-
similarly.
This is
Yeah.
the cheapest one. I have tested it on all of my consoles. This works on PS2 and earlier.
Yeah, and it's awesome. I have the RetroTink, the one before that,
Mhm.
and RetroTink is awesome. And the one that's
No, wait, I have the 5. Yeah, it's the 5X.
yeah, the 5X that's specifically on here. This is gonna get like sort of technical, but it uses what's called FPGA technology. So it does a lot to make the picture look better. If I'm gonna really super
Mhm.
simplify what it's doing, that's a very simple way, but it really makes the output of the game look gorgeous.
And you get
Yeah.
to customize it yourself. Like I can actually,
Profile.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's different
5X,
profiles.
right?
I can adjust the ratio. I can adjust how many scan lines I want on there, color and everything.
A
there's
lot
so
more
many-
options.
Oh,
Than this.
yeah.
I mean, this is
But
incredible.
this is
Yeah.
a great entry
Yes.
level, and I'm telling you, I've played the NES on this. I've played the
Mhm.
PS2, the Genesis, the Dreamcast, the N64. They all work on this.
Yeah,
It's really
no
just,
issues.
that's
You
awesome.
just pick
we're
different
taking
plugs.
questions
Yeah.
at the
That's
end.
Yeah. So, and then the games, and then I've known people that have like, if they have like a retro PC laptop,
Mhm.
or I mean a retro PC, and then they find a way to like hook it up. I don't know how to do that, but I've seen people
like
do
the
that.
like the mid '80s, like
Yeah.
PC gaming
Yeah.
on a mid '80s PC. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so a big thing I want to note, just I know, and many of you here are familiar with it, but for the sake of this as well as for the stream, an upscaler is not the same as an adapter. Adapters are great, and they will play your game, but they're not going to make it look the way it could.
Yeah.
Because I've had a lot of friends who enjoy video games, but they're not quite as into the technical aspects of it. I am saying, oh, I like the N64, but it looks terrible now. And I ask them what they're using to hook it up, and I say, that's why.
Yeah. You can buy a really cheap one on Amazon,
Yeah.
but you're gonna get what you pay for.
Exactly.
because
honestly.
it's because you're displaying it on what is likely an HD
Mhm.
screen, and it's just adapting it to work on the screen.
Exactly.
It's not
Upscaling.
fixing it to be
to be
like,
right for the
correct
ratio.
for the
screen.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if you're just trying to get it played, I mean, just to get it started, adapters are fine. And sometimes you might need an adapter to hook it up to your upscaler.
Yeah.
Depending. But upscaler is how you get that image quality to look
Yeah.
the way you want.
So then, with that being said,
Yes.
do you think hardware and when we say software,
Mhm.
right?
that's
Like,
emulators. that's your-
Emulators, yeah,
I like both. I like having both options. I personally prefer to play on real hardware, but for some of those, the challenges and the shufflers and
you
the
have to do
the
on
custom
software.
ones is software is great. Both options are great to have. And we've all talked about this before. We love having real hardware. I've got a very robust game collection, which I'm very proud of. But there's some of those games I know they're so hard for people to find. I care more about someone being able to play one of those games
yep,
than how they play it.
yes.
I
You will find a lot of people kind of try to gatekeep,
Mhm.
and that might be a conversation that you have to have.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, are you playing this on the real hardware? Like, some people say it because they're like, oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
How did you do that?
Most people are.
Most people
Yeah.
are nice about it, but there are some people who be like, well, if you're not playing it on real hardware, you're not playing the game the way it's intended.
It's
And
one
you're
of
just
those like, are you a real fan things?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're all geeks to some degree, anyways. We're already kept out of other things or ostracized. There's no need for gatekeeping in our own
Yeah.
community.
yeah,
For me, it's like it's the accessibility.
Yes.
yeah,
I'm old. I have all of my
Yeah.
hardware since I was a kid, except my Atari 2600. I don't know where that went. But yeah, so I had them, so I wanted to stream off of them
Yeah.
because they've been taking up space in my house. Like
Yeah.
they're there, my collection is there. But when I wanted to play Chrono Trigger, I went on eBay to see how expensive that was.
Oh yeah, no.
And just the cartridge is $300. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, oh, it's $750 on Steam. That is where I will be buying it.
Exactly.
So I played it for $7 instead of $300. And someone in my community was like, is this on original hardware? Because it was all like fresh and
Mhm.
clean looking.
yeah.
And I was like, no. She's like, oh, I'm surprised you're not playing on original hardware because I usually do. And I was like, please go on eBay and Google it.
yeah.
And like, just look it up. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Never
Yeah.
mind.
Oh, exactly.
Actually, I really love that you brought up that point though. That Steam and a lot of
Mhm.
like places like that, like GOG, is a great place
Yeah,
to
a
get.
lot of games have
original
been
games.
moved over to modern consoles,
Yes.
have been moved over to PC,
Yeah,
but a lot of them are just like dead and gone on
Mhm.
these retro consoles. And
Yeah.
that's where, for me, that's where emulation
Absolutely.
it comes
Picks
in
up,
to
yeah.
save the world, because there are so many games that are just dead and gone otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's silly to
To
gatekeep
gatekeep.
someone into paying $300 to play a video game.
Right.
And yeah, when I
Right.
could be paying
Yeah.
it for
Exactly.
$7. Think of how many games I could play for $7 with $300.
Yeah.
That's why my backlog looks the way it looks.
Side question: what do y'all think about that new news about GameStop having retro stores?
They did that before, and it went gone very fast.
I like the idea,
But it's
Yeah.
not the
GameStop.
implementation. I'm just going to go ahead and flat say it. If you want retro games, go to your local GameStop.
Yeah.
You know, game shops.
Yeah, Game Shop.
Yeah,
Game Shop.
GameStop. See,
Yeah.
fusing thoughts. Go to your local game stores. Check out online stores because there's not all going to be crazy eBay prices. Shop around. Come to conventions. I'm sure there's some places the vendors all check your prices.
Yeah,
Some
there's
people,
also price guide websites
Yes.
that will
Yeah.
tell you, like, just based on online sales, what the fluctuation
Mhm.
of price on certain games are, and it will tell you what it is for just the cartridge, what it is for with the box,
Mhm.
complete in box. I'm getting a little crazy with the Genesis games. All of them have to be complete in box.
Understandable.
Yeah.
with the way those boxes are, it's understandable. But no, just do what you need for you. But local game stores are always going to be
Yeah.
one of your best bets. And if you're from a small town like I'm from, don't fret. That's why the internet's our friend.
Yeah.
I have found a lot of good deals for that. But the biggest thing is do your research on that. And even though many times at conventions, your retro game dealers are going to be fantastic, some
That's where I got my Genesis. For
exactly.
$50.
Yeah.
Model 1 Genesis.
Yeah, some of them they're not going to realize that everyone knows games the way that we do, so they might try to upsell it. And
Or
it's
be
just-
like, here's this cartridge. Why is this one so much cheaper than that one? And then they don't tell you it's a repro.
Again,
Or it's the not for resale.
again,
copy.
Yeah.
most people are honest and genuinely care, but as with anything, do keep your eyes
Yeah.
on. But again, like both are fantastic. Both are fantastic. Again, whether hardware or software,
Yeah, I've
it
never
really depends on
cared.
what you want.
Yeah.
There are definitely people out there that care, but
Yeah.
that's their business.
And
Like, I don't care. I just want to enjoy a game.
And,
Yeah.
then, and then there's many times just for broadcasting it. Like I have the OG hardware. I will pull up my cartridge and be like, "Oh, if you want
Same.
proof, I got you."
Yeah.
But it's almost to be a jerk about it. But just for the simplicity.
Yeah.
Me with
yeah.
my spaceship Dreamcast console,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
have the VMU that has the picture of the game that's being currently
Oh,
played at the
that's
time.
You
sick.
do you and enjoy the game. And for anyone who comes in, I just want them to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's
So-
it's just enjoying the story. To
Precisely.
me, that's the most important part.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
do not care how you get to that story as long as you get the opportunity to play it.
So I just want to talk a little bit about what we have here on the screen so people understand the benefits and drawbacks of real hardware, like the street cred. The real hardware has a particular look
Mhm.
on screen, which we really love. Zero input latency, that also is really important if you're a speed runner. So that basically means like if you press the button press to what you see on screen, it would take less time than if you have an emulator. Sometimes there's like a few seconds difference between the button press and what you see on screen. But to your point, very expensive to get into, and with disk rot and stuff, they might just straight up stop working, which
Mhm.
is a big problem nowadays. And then the benefits and drawbacks of software is low barrier to entry. Anybody can get into
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Great for preservation, many ways to create fresh experiences with all the stuff we talked about earlier. But then there's always the, hey, are you playing this on real hardware crowd? Or the poor emulation can impact visuals, especially if you're not using something that's
I got
kept
one
up to
more
date.
positive on
Yes.
emulation. You can use any controller
Mhm.
that you want,
Right.
because I don't like the Xbox controllers.
That's
I
fair.
don't like that the analog sticks
Mhm.
are not symmetrical. I have
Mhm.
nerve damage in my hands, so that
Mhm.
like really affects this hand that it's higher up. So I use a PS5
There you go.
controller
Yeah.
for all of my emulated games, and you can map them however you want.
Mhm.
That's also how people do the alternate. That's also how people can do the alternate controls and
Mhm.
stuff. Like
Yeah.
you can, a bongo drum has 4 buttons. Like you can
Mhm.
control everything how you want it to display and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Real quick, just to add on to this, especially with the accessibility feature, not only is there accessibility and being able to use different controllers for that, but also in save states. I know a lot of people get finicky about those, but some people feel like, oh, I can't play that game. That's too hard for me. If you want to save state or rewind, you play it the way that you're happy with.
Yeah.
Games are meant to be enjoyed.
Yes. Amen to that. So with that being said, let's take some game suggestions for the budding retro streamer. What do you think someone should start off with if they've never streamed a retro game before, or played a retro game, or made some kind of retro content?
I honestly say just what a game that they've always wanted to try but have
Yeah,
never got
never.
into.
Gotcha.
I think if someone is playing modern games
Mhm.
and they
Yeah.
want to go to retro games, I'm like, okay, what modern games
Yeah.
do you
Take a
play?
look at the genre.
And then kind
Ah.
of and then go back on the genre. So
Mhm.
someone who's like, hey, I really loved Final Fantasy X.
Mhm.
I guess it's actually retro now. I
Yeah.
guess Final Fantasy, sorry, that's my favorite. Final Fantasy, let's say 16, because that came out last year. Say Final Fantasy 16, they loved it. I would actually not recommend another Final Fantasy
Mhm.
retro because that's an action adventure game.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pick an action adventure game with like these big monsters, and I'm like, oh well, maybe you can play that. Like I'm gonna go by genre
Yeah.
of what they're playing in the current sphere to be like, listen, this is how it used to be.
Uh-huh.
That game would have looked like this in 1992 or
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's hard if someone's never played anything in like the 80s 90s realm of games. That's where I would go.
Yeah.
It's based on like what kind of stories do you
Mhm.
like?
Yeah.
too.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I feel that it's really just depends up to like player's choice for this point. And another one you could do is also like just play some of those classics. Like one of my friends, he had prior to some of the Mario games that were coming out late last year, he had never played the original Super Mario Brothers,
Wow.
and
That's
he
one of my first games.
yeah, it was one of my first too, and he got into it, but he realized he was trying to do a long play without realizing it was a long play. So I said, "Hey, would you like me to give you a couple tips on here?" And I gave him the same tips my cousin gave me back in the day, for
Yeah.
the warp pipes and everything,
Mhm.
to help him get into it, so then he could take his time and explore it more later. So it's like sometimes just those classic ones, like, man, this is a benchmark of gaming I've not done yet. So like Legend of Zelda, the original, or even Link to the Past, Super Mario Brothers, Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go, I mean, it's an amazing game. I love it,
Yeah.
but it's really just based on the genre of stuff you're curious about, what you would
Yeah.
consider to be your own benchmarks, or maybe even just talk about some of your favorite games ever. Like, hey Ash, what's one of your favorite Super Nintendo games?
Oh yeah, we'll have to go a Link to the Past.
Exactly. So I know she loves that one. I know that one. What's a certain aerial game that you love playing and sharing with everyone?
Pallet Wings, maybe. Oh, UN Squadron.
UN
Yeah,
Squadron.
Yeah.
How do you understand?
Yeah.
So UN Squadron, amazing game. I only played a little bit of it. Thanks to my friendship with Ash, I invested in my own cartridge. of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So like, if
Excellent.
I'm not budding anymore, but you're able to be like, hey, what's a game that you like? Same as like, you know, if a friend gives you one of their favorite book recommendations, you can read the book and
Yeah.
know them through the book.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
true.
someone the other day just asked me what Dreamcast games do you recommend,
Yeah,
and this
cool.
is how I did it. I said platformers listed.
Yep.
RPGs listed, and I'm like, listen, I don't know what you like.
That's what
So
I-
these are the types, and these
Yeah.
are the recs for those types.
Yeah.
And the action adventures were like 3 lines long. I'm like, there's a lot of them,
There's
and
a
they're
lot
all
of
good.
those. Yeah.
But yeah,
Nice.
like it really, everyone's different.
Yeah.
People are like, this is my favorite game. I'm like, I literally hate that game.
Yeah.
Like we're all different. We
I-
all like different
Yeah,
things.
always I try. It's like I'll mention like, hey, this is a good one, but I always try to tailor it to the
Yeah.
individual
Yeah,
person.
so like I don't know every person, or someone will be like, "Do you recommend this game?" I'm like, "I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you like?"
Yeah.
Maybe I could love it, but
I
I don't know.
usually say if you've never played Link to the Past or
Mhm.
Super Mario World or like a Mega Man game
Oh yeah.
or Doom.
Mhm.
Doom was really fun.
Oh, it was so fun getting into that with you.
That was a really fun first time experience sharing with like my audience because people know that game, right? Like you could literally play it on anything.
Yeah.
And so everybody's played it before, but I didn't. And so that was a really, really awesome experience. And it gave me an appreciation for games of that era and that genre. So then I just got into more of them, like, like Rise of the Triad and then, what am I thinking of? System Shock and like all that kind of stuff. So I started to go down a rabbit hole. So yeah.
I'm a
That's
big
what I-
BioShock fan, and that's
BioShock,
that's
yeah.
how I went back to System Shock. I'm like, I
Yeah.
gotta see where this thing started. Like,
Yeah.
And then one of the other good things is like, even if you're not actively playing that game, if you have that passion for that one, because even though I'm not always actively playing a Zelda game, that's my favorite series of all time. So there's the joke that I'm always a Zelda streamer because it always comes up on the channel whether I'm playing a
Yeah.
Zelda game or not.
Yeah.
So just being able to connect from there, and anyone can come in. Hey, I'm not sure about this game. What do you recommend? Again, like you both said, tailor it,
Yeah.
drive it from there.
All right. Well, we've got like 10 minutes left, right?
Yeah. Just trying to keep
10
us cognizant of
Yeah. So this disclaimer is because we can't talk about ROMs. Like we will not be encouraging that.
I don't know
we
what
can
that
talk
is.
about
What are you talking
emulators.
about?
So we just assume that you have the games that you
So
want
yeah,
to play.
anything else previously mentioned is that you've made yourself from older available
Yeah.
legal content.
What was the question that Mandel had? before?
Mandel,
Yeah.
Mandel, who is a friend of ours, was asking, what
What
hardware
hardware?
do you suggest to upscale for streaming?
Yeah.
After you.
I definitely. I mean, I love my Mr. FPGA.
Mhm.
That's what I use.
I've been looking at one of those at some point.
I love it. So if you don't know what the Mr. FPGA is, it's basically like a mini computer. Like people compare it to a Raspberry Pi, and what
Okay.
that even
Mhm.
means is it's like you can build it yourself too. So FPGA means field programmable gate array, and it basically hardware configures itself to hardware emulate a console. So it's the closest thing that you can get to a console without using the console.
Mhm.
And it works. It's easy and it outputs the HDMI and I love it. Or the retro tank.
Yep.
I really want to get a
So
5X.
I have the low end retro thing
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't want to spend way too much money on the beginning of my journey. That's my
Yeah.
biggest thing. I'm very cheap. I want to not throw tons of money at anything.
Yeah.
So my community actually fundraised for this,
Yeah.
and I promised them I would play Sega games all summer.
Yeah.
And there you go.
And
And that's what I've been doing. But this is great. Like I said, this plays. I've had NES. I don't have a Super Nintendo, but an NES, N64, PS2, Dreamcast. They all work.
Yep. Yeah.
They all work on this.
And to kind of piggyback on that, like I said earlier, I have the RetroTink 5X, which is the one that Ash showed the picture of. That is not their highest end model, but it's their main base model, which
Yeah.
does not get into 4K because it's for most
But
people.
it's a lot more advanced
Exactly.
settings.
Yeah, and so for consoles, like I've got all 7 generations of Nintendo home console. I've got PS2 through 5. I have an Atari 7800. So, but I've been able to hook up all my Nintendo consoles to an adapter and then plug them into the upscaler and then to my switcher. So
Yeah.
I've got a lot of cable management going on. It's a lot of fun. But may I?
Yeah, take it.
So this is again extremely similar to what the 5X does, but it's
It just doesn't have as many customization.
it doesn't have as many
options.
customization options. So some of the connections and points are still going to be the same for your console in here, and then your HDMI will go in here and into your TV.
Yeah, it also has S video too.
It does
Yeah.
have S video
My
as
Genesis
well.
goes on S video.
Exactly, yes. So that's going to be that, and it's just charged. It's powered a USB micro to whether you just have a AC adapter to micro or a USB to that. Either works for it. It's just customized on what you need to, whether you have a
Mhm.
single console running to it or multiple from an adapter into
Yeah,
it.
I will
Yeah.
say if you want to do 360 PS3 and earlier,
Mhm.
you don't even need this.
Yeah.
You can just go straight to the computer, straight to the capture card into the computer.
Exactly. Yeah. This is mostly again for anything
The
earlier.
PS2 and earlier.
Yeah.
Is,
Well,
is what you
once
can
you
use
start
this for.
once you start going more to composite from component is
Yeah.
when you really are going to need that. So basically, instead of the 5 prongs,
Yep.
the 3. So, and then for all those different options, there's more options in there that I'm ever going to mess around with. I've messed around with them for fun because I have it, but it's been really neat because I was finally finishing my copy of Tales of the Abyss on PS2. I was able to get it to look just like it did on the CRT I started playing it on.
That's sick.
So, and
Yeah.
and for frame of reference, I have a flat screen as we all do, a 65-inch curved Samsung. It
That's my
looked
living
like a
room, I think.
CRT.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looked like a CRT, and it scaled it in to that 4:3.
This is
I
brilliant.
I was able to adjust the level of scan line, so I had it like just enough that it looked right without being like very super visual. Because
Yeah.
for those who don't know, the games back in the day when CRTs were the norm, the developers would actually code the art and make the art so they worked with the CRT.
Right.
So that's why older games, like one of the best examples is
Castlevania
Cas-
Symphony of the Night.
Castlevania
this-
Symphony
yeah.
of the Night and Super Mario RPG. They look
Oh yeah,
terrible on a modern
RPG.
console.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
where you have all those settings on the 5,
Yep.
on the 2X Pro, it's just got 2 switches. So
Gotcha.
there's 2 options with 2 settings on each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there like finagling around to be like, which one? Because every single console has like different
Yeah.
settings. So every time I
I
switch
just
a
want to
console,
make sure
I'm like,
we
hold
also.
on.
Does anybody else?
Yes, I have
Yes.
questions.
Yeah. What's up?
So, I wanted to ask you a little bit about doing part of this in business aspect.
Uh-huh.
Good enough where I went out, I started my
Hey.
and thinking about the business side. However, I'm now
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I think that's definitely something to be concerned about. Yes, if you want to specifically work with Nintendo or Pokemon, that is something that you have to consider. If you really want to go that route, I would avoid it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I would avoid it.
My second question would be, in your experience, has it been fun and relatively profitable to not go that?
I don't go that route, but not for any reason other than I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
I will say, because I don't exclusively stream retro, I've only been exclusively streaming retro this year. Fun wise, it's more fun for me to play a game that I've played to death at the age of 12 than like playing even a brand new game that I really love. Playing like my childhood games is such a different vibe, and I really feel like I'm sharing the most important games of my life to other people, and like I just personally get a lot more enjoyment out of that. Every person is different, so that might be, you might try it and be like, I hate this, and that's fine. But that, for me, I love that. But in terms of business, it's so hard. Like, it's varies so much. Like, some people could be wildly successful in that, and some people could absolutely not. Like, it's hard to gauge that.
For me, I feel that regardless as to where you are going with your journey on it, is to first off recognize what and where you are with it. I'll go ahead and flat state, yes, I'm a Twitch affiliate. I stream as a hobby. I'm a full-time marine biologist. Streaming is something I do as a hobby, and I love it. I am happy I've been successful with it. I'm happy I'm able to get from it. But even if I wasn't able to monetize, I would still do it for fun.
Yeah.
My biggest advice for anything you're doing, and especially since you're already streaming, you know this, play what you want. I've had so many people who feel they need to play the newest game, or also they feel that, oh, I said I'd play this. Play what you want. And even if you've written a schedule, that's great. Play what you want. And for me, like, I like to bounce around between, like, you know what? I feel like playing this older Super Nintendo game tonight. Come along with the journey with me. Or other times, like, oh yeah, I promised we're gonna keep playing this game and just keep playing this game. And others, like, you know, like I said earlier with Retro Roulette, I want to play something tonight. I don't know what. Let's see where it takes us.
I also feel like if you're not enjoying it,
everyone
everyone
sees
sees
that.
it. Like,
people
your
read
vibe
that.
is off, and everyone is like,
that's.
something's
I've
wrong.
found a lot of success in sponsorships through games that are being re-released, like Tomb Raider, for example, was one that I did. Toomba, limited run games. I've been working with them,
saw that.
so there is room for you to monetize and be successful while playing retro games.
Yeah, it's just a matter of like where you're looking, but don't, as with anything, and
enjoyment has to be
number one,
very large part of
and
that.
don't shoehorn yourself into something in particular.
I'm gonna take another question right over here. What's up? Yeah.
Yeah, you can't.
The light is not capable for it. That's
it has to be the full
that's
model.
part of why it is less expensive. Aside from,
I literally
having
sold my
Yeah.
light to get the regular ones.
I'm only getting a
specifically,
light
so I
because I'm getting the Zelda one to collect it, but I'm not going
Oh
to stream
my
from it.
god! I'm like trying not to do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
For the game capture, I have an Elgato HD60S. It's not my favorite, but there's also the Avermedia one.
And also,
I actually use EVGA. What is the LR1?
I think so, yeah. And thank you again. So, and also, which is, if you're using upscaler, Elgato doesn't really like to use retro.
Elgato burns up so
and
hot with these.
I swear by Cloner Alliance. They are a lesser known brand, but a really good brand. So that's, like I said, I'm not here to absolutely say yes, use this, or no, don't use this, but find what's good for you. But Cloner Alliance, and time's up.
All right,
also
I'm gonna take this question.
Yes, that's one right here.
What's up, buddy? Yeah. That's a great way to end
Well,
out.
all I can
Thank
say
you.
is we would like to play.
Yeah. My
You
name's
can play
Ashton
some more.
Hahn.
I'm Mansell Ferox.
I'm XO Peachy.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you had a good time.
Thank you.
Happy DragonCon.